Turkish sex cult leader sentenced to 8,658 years in prison. On November 16th, Adnan Oktar, a former Turkish televangelist and sex cult leader, was sentenced to a record 8,658 years in prison following a retrial. Oktar was imprisoned in 2021 for several crimes, including sexually abusing minors, fraud, and an attempted political and military espionage. Oktar received international recognition for the talk show he hosted on his A9 TV channel, which usually featured an unusual combination of religious discussions with women in skimpy outfits dancing to modern pop music. The women were known as the kittens and were the most important supporters of his movement. Former members of his organization revealed the constant sexual abuse they endured while they were part of his group and the repeated harassment they dealt with after leaving it. Many women who left his company claimed he forced them into sexual slavery. One woman previously provided testimony at his trial that Oktar sexually assaulted her and many other women, and that they were forced to take birth control pills. This is so crazy. After a police raid, about 69,000 birth control pills were found at his home. However, supporters of Oktar claim that he is a victim of a political setup. Okay, this dude, we've talked about him before on the show. I think when his first trial happened, and now there was this retrial and he got a new sentencing of like close to 9,000 years in prison, which is crazy. But this man, I don't think you could do a better job of looking like a stereotype of an evil cult leader.
I know, right?
It's crazy. Like, you look like a Disney villain. How do you there has to be something that you purposefully cultivate your image to look like that, right? Like, that doesn't happen on accident. Am I crazy?
Wait, what was his first how many years did he got first now that he got a retrial? Did it increase or decrease?
That's a good question. Let me double check really quickly. Apparently, one of the things that he became very famous for is he's also a creationist. And I was watching this Vice documentary about him today, and they called him like Islam's only creationist. And I'm like, I just don't, what are you talking about? That's just not true. He is like responsible for promoting or popularizing creationism within Islam. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's so wild. He's like had this weird kind of quasi-Islamic feminism. Do you know about this guy at all? Have you ever heard about him before?
Only from the news that we covered about him before. That's all I know about him.
Oh my gosh. So he basically takes kind of these Islamic narratives about women and inverts it, but it's still for the, what's the word I'm looking for? It's still used in a way that is ultimately for the benefit of patriarchy. So he talks about like all the standard narratives you hear, like, oh, like heaven is at your mother's feet, and the first believer was a woman, the first martyr was a woman, the first person to receive and validate the prophet's revelation was a woman. Like, he uses all these narratives that are very typical that you hear from preachers about the glory of women and the position that they should hold in terms of respect and all this stuff. But then he goes on to talk about how all these standards about covering oneself and standards of modesty and being in the home, blah, 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 are just a way to keep women under control. And he kind of like puts forward this narrative that not only are women equal, women are actually superior. So when people would interview these kittens,
why is he the leader?
The brother asks a very good question. when you interview these kittens, they're like, oh, well, why do you like this so much? They're like, oh, well, in America, women are treated no differently from a table. But when I walk into a room, I'm treated as a superior being, blah, blah, blah. Like they speak about it as if it's actually above equality, like the kind of respect that they receive from him and from his teachings, da, da, da. And they also are against Charles Darwin because they say that like Charles Darwin is racist and they promote in his standards. I mean, he was racist, but like,
I mean, who wasn't
because of exactly, but because they use like the personal flaws of Charles Darwin as a person to discredit the theory of evolution itself, and then that kind of plays into this weird fake feminism in their own way. But what's so interesting is when you look at pictures of the women in these groups, they like all look the same. Like they have all gotten the plastic surgery to all essentially look the same. It's actually very freaky. Like I saw one video.
Unlike Muhammad, he seems to also like them older. What?
I mean, this man has been convicted of crimes relating to the abuse of minors, so not in its entirely. Not
really. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. So, very much like Muhammad, he liked them old and young.
Yeah, he maybe you could say did not have boundaries. I think that is very easy to claim. Yeah, this guy is like, I want to find what his first sentencing was, because I remember it was also a huge number. I don't know if it was close to 9,000 years though. Oh, I'm sorry, Armin. The first time he got sentenced, he only got sentenced to 1,075 years in prison.
So this is ridiculous. So it got worse.
It's absolutely insane.
I'm sure he's upset that it got 7,000 more years.
What was so crazy to me was that when they raided his house, they found almost 69,000 birth control pills.
Why?
What the hell? That's crazy. Where do you even get that many? Like, and then when he was, questioned about it, blah, 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 they're like, oh, it's for hormonal problems and skin disorders.
What? What are they going to do with that? Are they going to sell it in the market, or are they going to throw it away?
With all the birth control that they seized?
Yes.
No, you can't sell that. It has to be destroyed.
It has to be destroyed?
Yeah, 100%.
How much does that cost? 69,000 birth control?
I don't even know. Darko is saying, wait, was he trying to corner the market? Seriously, it's absolutely bonkers. When I was reading this, I literally said out loud, what? Look, I still can't get over that fact. That just boggles my mind.
Was that all for himself? Like, or are they selling it?
I mean, it's been reported by people who survived his cult and organization that this is something that was forced upon them, right?
I know, but like he's having sex with all of these women, right?
I know, but he also essentially was known to force them to do what he wanted for other people as well.
For other people, okay, because I think like this guy is way too confident if he thinks that he needs to make sure that he has 69,000 birth control pills if it's all just for the woman that he's sleeping with. So,
does he have the sex drive of Muhammad as well? Because Muhammad also had a crazy sex drive.
Yeah. Actually, in Islam, they brag about it. It's not something they're ashamed of.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, our prophet had a strong libido, but what's the problem?
No, Apostate Prophet has like a few really good videos about how hypersexual Muhammad was according to the scriptures.
Okay, like let's not make hypersexual like a bad thing just because Muhammad was hypersexual. Can we please not like portray it as a negative thing?
No, okay, my understanding of hypersexuality is sexual libido or activity to the extent that it is actually that you engage in dangerous and risky behaviors. Like it's a form of impairment because you are now engaging in behaviors that are actually posing a risk to yourself. I've known hypersexual people and it is dangerous.
Okay, I don't think Muhammad was that level of sexual. I don't know. I mean, he seemed to be able to do other things other than having sex. So I would think like he was going on.
It doesn't mean that you literally cannot do anything besides having sex. It's like, again, this is my understanding and I could be wrong about what, a clinical or technical definition of it is, but it's talking about the extent to which you will do things that are actually, can cause harm to you for the sake of feeding this psychological need. It's like an addiction.
Selva is calling me out. Yeah. Harris is saying Prophet Muhammad had the strength of 6,000 men. Yes, in bed, apparently. That's what they were told. All right. You can now get the sexiest blasphemous art ever known to mankind for free. Too sexy to show most of it here on YouTube. We draw Muhammad, Hindu goddesses, sexy hijabi art, Jesus, Mother Mary, Japanese god, Greek gods, and much, much more. Click on the link below where it says get our free blasphemous art.